just entered the theater of an alien sky. If the words and images seem strange to you, there's a reason for this. Our world was once a vastly different place. To experience this won't hurt you, and there is nothing to fear. It was perhaps 15 years ago that we first used the phrase, a meeting of myth and science, to describe the Thunderbolts Project. But now, as we're continuing to attract a crowd of newcomers, it seems that a little background could be useful. My original inspiration for this work came from the controversial theorist Immanuel Velikovsky and his 1950 bestseller, Worlds in Collision. It was that inspiration that provoked my own lifelong investigation, which is focused on the origins of ancient myths and symbols, bringing to light hundreds of mythic archetypes and connecting these patterns to extraordinary planetary events in ancient times. In 1972, my brother Steve and I had published a special issue of the student journal Pensée titled Immanuel Velikovsky Reconsidered. To our surprise, the issue became a bestseller at local campus bookstores, encouraging us to advertise the publication internationally and commit to a full series on Velikovsky. In the course of this series, in 1974, the American Association for the Advancement of Science, the AAAS, held a symposium on Velikovsky at its annual meeting in San Francisco. Shortly thereafter, I submitted a proposal to Doubleday, the world's largest publisher at the time, for a book growing out of my own research, a book to be called The Saturn Myth. My proposal included an article I'd written titled Saturn, the Polar Night Sun, and I included an outline of a comprehensive interpretation of ancient myths and symbols. Starting with a Velikovskyan perspective, the article claimed that in ancient times, Earth and Saturn were joined in a unique planetary system unlike anything known today, and it suggested that the vast world of ancient myths and symbols had its direct inspiration in this human experience. To prepare for the task, I had learned French and German, enabling me to translate key sources not available in English. I also acquired a ground floor knowledge of the Egyptian hieroglyphic system, without which no satisfactory interpretation of Egyptian mythic and symbolic content would be possible, since my work would challenge virtually all common understanding on this subject. Happily, the communication with Doubleday led the company to offer me the largest advance they had ever given to a previously unknown author. As for the rest of the story, completing the book proved to be an endurance test beyond anything originally anticipated. And yet, when Doubleday published the Saturn myth in late spring of 1980, I'd really only opened the door to the 4 decades of study that followed. The Saturn myth set forth a radical idea. It claimed that every ancient culture memorialized an extraordinary phase of human history called the Age of the Gods. Though the words could have a familiar ring today, the historic meaning was lost many centuries ago, and that meaning is precisely what we've claimed to recover. For many years now, I've used the image seen here as a ground floor referent in an uncompromising analysis of global patterns, and I've claimed that every mythic theme since the emergence of the great civilizations can be explained by what happened to these bodies. To which I've added, just as surely, the observation that no archetype ever named has the slightest connection to any natural experience today. The archetypes closest to the heart of the reconstruction would include memories of a primeval sun before the present sun, remembered also as the father of creation. The ancient celebration of this power as the celestial prototype of kings. The enigmatic location of the primeval sun at the celestial pole, the center of the sky around which the heavens visually turn. The unexplained identity of this primeval sun as the planet Saturn in the early astronomies. Identity of this supreme God as a fallen or displaced power. In fact, no description of that earlier condition is more to the point than that given by the Babylonian astronomer priest Berosus in the 3rd century BC. Berosus observed that in an earlier time the planets were, quoting here, so arranged in one row that a straight line may pass through their spheres. What a remarkable and preposterous idea! A perfect and sustained planetary conjunction, something never seen in our time, and yet a stunningly accurate description of the ancient polar configuration, to which we've devoted priority attention for more than 40 years. In the months ahead, we intend to show that there was indeed a myth-making phase of human history from which the full spectrum of ancient ideas, including hundreds of mythic and symbolic archetypes, arose. No coincidence involved. Our goal will be to expose the unified substructure, to show that one ancient experience, recorded through a diversity of mythic interpretations, reached across every domain of commemorative activity. There's a reason why we state our conclusions with such confidence. Simply grant the reconstructed events, and all well-documented archetypes become predictable. As strange as this may seem, after the myth-making epoch, no new archetypes arose, not a single one. Now that is a critical fact, one that can force an investigator to ask what set the myth-making epoch apart from the era that followed. By now, of course, the implications should be clear. The archetypes arose in response to extraordinary celestial provocations, and nothing in today's natural world would lead one to expect a single archetype that has been named. For us, no prior cause other than the dynamic and evolving polar configuration will ever meet that test. In retrospect, it's not surprising that month by month, new information has continually expanded the picture. I say not surprising because every ancient culture on Earth memorialized a prior rule of towering gods. So as the underlying cross-cultural agreement stands out, the radical contrast to today's natural experience becomes progressively more obvious and persuasive, including the ancient identification of the Mother Goddess as the planet Venus, the corresponding identity of the Venus Goddess as the luminous eye, heart, and soul of the sovereign power, the hub of the cosmic wheel, and the animating outflow or radiance itself. Worldwide myths of a legendary warrior and hero born from the Mother Goddess to vanquish chaos monsters. Global myths and symbols of the ancient conjunction or marriage of the Mother Goddess and warrior hero, meaning, of course, Mars and Venus. And finally, the ancient memory that unifies the planetary traditions, the memory so powerfully expressed by Berosus of planets previously gathered along a single axis. For several decades, I described this system episodically punctuated by planetary instability and world-altering disruptions, all occurring in an environment unlike anything we experience today. It's that contrast that led me to encourage investigation by others under the obvious acid tests. For an independent researcher, the tangible and concrete nature of the reconstruction will leave no ambiguity as to implications. If the claimed events occurred, what would you expect to find? And most critically, does the reconstruction leave any recognized archetypes of world myth and symbol unexplained? No other test than this should be needed.